Sorry. All right. Members, you're all very welcome to the monthly meeting of the Environment Regeneration Committee and Staban Chamber today. And we have the notice and summons a meeting, and then we'll get Karen to do the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. To all members of Environment and Regeneration Committee, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Environment and Regeneration Committee, which will be a hybrid meeting to be conducted remotely via WebEx and also physically in the Chamber, Derry Road, Strabane, on Wednesday, the 7th of December at 4 p.m. And I'll take the roll call. Alderman Maurice Devaney.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey is
Here, Karen.
here. Alderman Keith Kerrigan is in the Chamber. Councillor John Boyle. Online.
Online.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Edwards. Okay. Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And Shaw, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Kelly. Okay.
Shaw, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Emma McGinley.
And Shaw, Karen.
Okay. Councillor Rory McHugh.
He's on his way to the chamber, Karen. He's just running a wee bit late.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Declan Norris is in the chamber. Councillor Maeve O'Neill.
Online.
Thank you. And Councillor Martin Riley.
Online, Karen, and Councillor Edwards is on his way to the chamber as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Right, members, that's the broadcast statement. So I'd like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the chamber, Staban, or in attendance remotely, that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to be informed and to use the storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website www.derrystaban.com. So, members, at the end of that way, I have item 4 is the declaration of members' interest. If anyone has a declaration which they wish to raise now, or if you wish to raise it in due course when we come to certain items. If there is nothing to be raised at the start, we move on then to item 5, which is to receive the presentation from PCI Consultant regarding Maboy landfill site. And you have a detailed information on that, and we have Daniel McAteer to present, and again, we have a detailed presentation. Presentations are usually limited till approximately around 15 minutes. There's a bit of leeway there, but because there will be questions coming to you from the members afterwards. But we do thank you for the presentation in advance as well. So members have had opportunity to look through it. So there will be plenty of questions. So I'll leave it in your hands if you wish to summarise effectively what you've already forwarded, and then allow members opportunity. So I'll leave it to yourselves now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you wish me to start now? Okay. Or? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, yeah.
Okay. Apologies first of all. There's someone outside in quite a loud motorbike, so if you hear some noises, accept our apology. So first of all, thanks very much for giving us an opportunity to present to you. I'm joined in the room today by 3 of the people involved in the project and a resident who lives in the area who has obviously just come along as an observer. And before I get going, I'd ask your indulgence. I'm going to explain some stuff that you probably already know, but we are being joined today by a number of people in England and the United States, and indeed in some of the African countries, including Kenya. They're interested about what's going on here. So they will be tuning in to watch both live and later on. So I will be making some obvious points about where the site is and what has happened here, most of which you will probably know already. Also, anything that I say here will be in general terms only because of obvious commercial sensitivity that surrounds this project. And it is without prejudice to any legal actions that may or may not arise out of this. So there is a presentation, so thank you very much for those who have taken the time to look at that. I want to briefly run through this very, very quickly if I may. The first thing is that we had been before this committee back in 2019. At that point, Councillor Donnelly and Alderman McClintock suggested that we come back and do a presentation to full council. And between one thing and another, and the COVID situation, then things kind of overtook themselves. I started the first slide. I wonder, could I refer to the slide if that's possible?
Yeah, are you in a position, Mr. McAteer, to show it on your side, or maybe we can get the display bin or your presentation?
No,
Can you share it from your side?
If you could put it up, Mr. Chairman, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Right, we'll look about doing that now. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Just to move quickly through it, I'll take each slide at a time rather than point by point. That probably takes us through it much more quickly. So we go to the first slide to remind ourselves about what the problem is. That's the next slide, please. The problem is there's been illegal dumping. We now have details of the volume. It's in excess of 1 million tonnes, according to recent reports. There are very serious environmental implications locally and further afield. And there are, of course, major economic consequences of what has happened. Our position is not that we're interested in what went before. We're not interested in inquiries or anything else. We're simply interested in trying to fix the problem rather than to find out who caused it and why. Next slide, please. The economic consequences will include, but it may not be limited to, the cleanup costs, the contingent liabilities that might arise for the next 40 or 50 years. We have now seen reports where the senior government advisors have been saying that they expect there to be pollution, air and water pollution for the next 40 to 50 years. There's a significant impact on agriculture, not just locally, but further afield in the country. There will be the impact on drinking water. There will be the impact on foreign direct investment. There's the risk of European fines being levied against us. And there's the damage to us, local people from this council area, whereby on one hand, we're promoting an agenda of being sympathetic to the environment. We have a number of politicians locally talking about global warming and climate change, and yet we have got the biggest single environmental disaster on our doorstep, biggest single environmental disaster in modern Europe. The next slide, please. We show there's lots of news reports, some of which are scary. For example, Dr. Teresa Kearney saying that we've been lucky that the thing hasn't gone in the water. Next slide, please. There are various news reports coming from various political people who are obviously concerned. They've said that the cost might be 20 million or 100 million, which is disturbingly vague. The next report, Minister Atwood says that the cost might be, I quote, millions of pounds. That's the next slide there. The then Minister Alex Atwood, he says it would be millions, plurals of pounds. If you go to the next slide, there's a news report. The one-time Minister Mark Durgan said that the site is a ticking time bomb and action needs to be taken before a huge environmental crime becomes an even bigger environmental crisis. And the next slide, please, a news report by Conor Macaulay puts the cost of cleaning this mess up at somewhere between 20 million and 250 million. As an observer of economics, you might conclude that people really don't know what's going on here. The next slide, please, shows that there was a move by one arm of government that compelled a farmer to clean up the mess, and another arm of government said to him not to touch the stuff. And that lack of joined-up thinking attracted some serious criticism from some observers. Mr. Killen here lives in the area. He's a farmer. He's a successful farmer and a successful businessman. And he and some concerned friends and neighbours decided to get together and fund a report to see could a proper solution be found here, and came to us here, PCI Consulting. We're a business consultancy firm based here in Derry. And I set out in the next slide the timeline of our engagements with the Northern Ireland Environment Agency. If you could just, next slide, please. This goes back a long time. 2009, there were complaints made by the local residents to the NIEA. 2012, the police moved in. 2013, there was a report called the Mills Report. that is stark in its revelations about the environmental mismanagement in this country generally, but particularly this is the biggest of the lot. There have been various stakeholder groups by which the Environmental Agency have turned up and give presentations. By 2016, the government had responded by saying, could we have some proposals as to how this problem might be fixed? We submitted our project, the 4R solution, back in 2016. So if I could pause there, from 2016 to today, 6 years have passed since we tabled a complete remediation strategy, and no one has really taken that seriously other than the councillors in our local council. Various stakeholder groups, various reports are done. We had asked for detailed information. We were told we were not entitled to that information because of the ongoing criminal case. To put down a marker, we don't accept that. But in any event, the information was now provided a few weeks ago, so we're in a better position now to talk about the quantities and the nature of the waste that was actually deposited there. In 2019, we eventually got in front of the Permanent Secretary, Dr. McMahon was then the Permanent Secretary of the department. And at that meeting, we were told by a number of people present that the department had made a decision that their strategy would involve leaving the waste where it was. We were surprised and alarmed at the suggestion that by 2019, and 10 years after the matter had been reported, there was a decision to cover over. I know a lot of other people who have been actively campaigning about this use a different expression for cover. They call it a cover up as opposed to a cover over. And I'm not surprised that they do. I'm just looking at my stopwatch here. So we then set the next slide, our engagement with the council here. The council, in fact, raised concerns with the NIA. Sorry, next slide, please. Back as far as 2007, this is on footer reports and complaints made by neighbours. In 2008, the complaints were made again. We mentioned about there's reports were carried out, etc., etc., etc. And in March 19, we had a meeting with John Kelby, the head of the council, to effectively say, look, we have an alternative way forward here. There was a short presentation due for the council. Things went wrong. There seems to have been a bit of a cock-up in diaries. There was a short meeting that took place on the water side with a commitment to bring us back in. So we're now back in today on foot of that presentation that was given at the end of 19. So to recap, next slide, please. It is a massive problem. It has been ongoing for many years. There is no clarity on cost. There's no clarity on risks. There's no clarity on who is responsible. And the politicians are acutely aware and have tried their best, and the department who has taken the lead have been heavily criticised. Next slide, please. The questions we asked at this stage are who is or who may become responsible? What are they responsible for? What is DAERA's role? And what can the council do? And ultimately, who will pay? In the event that the normal rule is that the polluter pays, and in the event that the polluter doesn't pay, then this is going to be a very large bill that's going to land on the lap of someone. And I don't think anyone has really properly thought that through. So the next slide, please. The options that the department identified were do nothing, then the containment cap, and then the full remediation option. The next slide, please. DAERA at that stage organised for a firm of consulting engineers, then called White, Young, Green, to provide this table, which is called their evaluation of feasible options. I call this the Barcelona chart, and you can ask me why later. But what we say is that we don't accept the output of that report at all. Now, anecdotally, White, Young, Green have now been bought over by a company called Tetra Tech, and you'll hear more about them later. So they basically do an exercise and they say the best thing to do here is leave the waste where it is. Now, there have been environmental groups and other activists who have tirelessly campaigned about this for the past 10, 15 years. They're not getting paid to do that. They're not earning any money in relation to that, but they have nevertheless been agitating that this is not really what the solution should look like. The next point, we disagree with all of that table based on health and safety, community impact, effectiveness, sustainability, practicability, timescales, and commercial availability. That's the next point. Next slide, please. And to cut a very long story short, we do not respect the integrity of that process whereby that the project was screened. We think there are better ways to do that. What our solution was, next slide, is a full remediation. We say it is better, it is quicker, and it is more economical in the long term. Next slide, please. What does it involve, the full remediation? The first thing we wanted to do was put a protective barrier across the River Faughan. We then wanted to excavate, quantify and qualify the waste types, remove and dispose it into a properly engineered landfill site, and then remediation of the site with long-term aftercare and passing the asset to some form of community trust or community interested partnership without the liability, obviously. The next site shows a map which shows the impact, not necessarily just on the environment, but for example, there's a line there at the top of the picture that shows the proposed path for the proposed A6. Some of us here in Derry will know that for the past 50 years we've been trying to get a road from here to Belfast. And the latest reason for holding that up will be the fact that they can't build that part because it trespasses over this land. Our project would have involved, number one, put the protective barrier up, number two, remove the waste that is inhibiting the progress of the A6. But that's a different, that's a working point rather than a strategic point. The next slides just show what the solution is. It is in many ways not an easy solution, but it is a simple one. Protect the river, excavate the waste, get it properly managed, manage the risk on site, leave the site at a state that's valuable going forward without any residual economic, environmental or other risks associated to it. And there are plenty of models and examples of where this has worked before, although obviously not on this scale because this is the biggest that there is. We had set out timescales back then 6 years ago. Ironically, had we been engaged, we probably would have been finished by now. Those timescales are set out in the Gantt chart entitled timescales. The next slide, please. The next couple of slides. There's a before and after, what it would look like after, and what it would be to start with. There's a slide entitled Who. This is local farmers, residents and business people are trying to fix this. This is supposed to be local people fixing a local problem. Next slide, please. Next slide, just moving through. Next slide, please. And next slide. And next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So we set out the challenges, which will be technical, timing, procurement, legal, financial, reputation. And to cut a very long story short, we believe that the approach taken to date has been something sort of cart before horse. Because what has happened here is that somewhere along the line, someone took a decision to say, let's cover the waste over and let's find the cheapest way to do it. We believe that was not the approach. The approach should have been, first of all, define what is truly the best environmental solution, then find out what the technical challenges are, then find out what the cost might be, then find out how it might be procured, then find out what the reputational and other issues might be. And I drilled down on them. So next slide, please, the technical. We say it's a complex problem, but a world-class team has been assembled and the difficulty with information has now been removed. So this will be a local company taking the lead with a world-class team to fix a very complicated problem. Next slide, please. The timing, we're ready to go and have been ready to go since 2016. We had people on standby to build a protective barrier. They're a company called Keller. Keller are the biggest underground engineering company in the world, and they were ready to come here to protect the river. The cost of that, anecdotally, is a third of the cost that the consultants have been paid so far over the past 10 years. We estimate that the cost, the money spent so far, not counting the civil service salaries involved, we reckon about 5 million quid may have been spent so far, but we can't get the detailed information. We then wanted the 4 to 5 years to clean up. And then we put in a further 10-year runoff safety net that we put in place after that. In terms of procurement, we say that there are any number of very, very interesting procurement models that could be used and deployed. The procurement that has been followed, we say, has been inappropriate and in fact open to legal challenge, but that's a different day's work. We believe that the private sector can engage with the public sector and the third sector to bring a properly collaborative solution to this problem. Next slide, please. Legal issues. Who was responsible for creating the problem? Well, I mean, that's probably the people who put the waste there. But perhaps there's another question. Who was responsible for not intervening? And what are the consequences? There are authorities out there now to say that public sector bodies have been held liable for not intervening when they had the power to do so. It used to be that if you were in the private sector and you made a mistake, you get sued. But if you're in the public sector and you made a mistake, you couldn't get sued. That is a day now that's passed. And then we asked, what powers do the council have under the Waste and Contamination Land Order 1997? Now, John Kelpie and Karen Phillips very helpfully agreed to meet with us last Monday, and we've had discussions about that. We believe that you, as local councillors, can take the lead and have a much more active role. And if I may say so, I, in another life, have been in front of this council and can't help but be impressed by the level of diligence that the local councillors have and the skill and expertise that they have when they bring to solve problems, whether they're in planning or in our department. So I believe that the local councillors do have power to try and take the lead, either as a stakeholder or as a lead partner. I set out the reputational concerns. I think on one hand, it's very noble that Derry sets itself out to be a sort of a zero waste community. But when we have this disaster on our doorstep, it is a bit sort of, it's a bit ironic. So next one is the reputational damage. It's, to my mind, next slide, please. For us to be talking about zero waste, to my mind, is rather like someone on the Titanic wondering, well, what sort of napkins will we have at dinner tonight as the whole thing's sinking? So that's how I would view that. Next steps, we set out with the next slide, please. Next steps would be simply what we could do to get moving here. We wanted to engage the business group are still prepared to consider an engagement, but obviously after so many years, they are sceptical about whether anything's really going to be done, and they may seek alternative remedies. On the next page, the observations, very, very simply, we first engaged in September 16. The Mills report has identified the solutions. There was a competition. We were denied information. We believe that there's a conflict because one department that was really responsible for preventing this or intervening is now taking the lead in fixing the problem, and we believe that there's a statutory conflict of interest there. But that's, again, a different matter. Next slide, please. We're concerned there might be public sector liability, not just for the department, but for the council, under common law, negligence, protection of human rights, misfeasance in public office, and breach of statutory duty. The observations, next slide. There are serious social and economic consequences for us as residents of this area. The Mills report's criticisms are clear, and I've asked the question, does this expose the council to fines? Our frustration has been we have met local councillors who are really keen to try and fix this problem, and yet they are told that their hands are tied, and we frankly don't accept that. That's really the observations that we have. We're not here to be overly critical, but at the same token, we're not here to not expose the truth of what is going on here. We believe this could have been fixed much earlier. We believe there was a solution, and we have also been told conflicting information. So, for example, back in 2019, at the meeting with the Permanent Secretary, the people advising the Permanent Secretary said at that time that the decision had already been taken to cover over the waste. The resident who's here beside me was told at a meeting not 6 weeks ago that they're going to cover over the waste and put a play park on top of it. And yet we received a letter from the department, which was secured by Karen Phillips and John Kelpie, whereby the agency are now saying that the remediation option appraisal includes consultation which was delayed by the criminal trial. We don't accept that, by the way, it was delayed. But in any event, they now say all remediation options remain on the table for appraisal, including removal of the unlawful waste to the licensed landfill facility. It is disappointing that 7 years later that the department now eventually acknowledges that that solution is a possibility. And as I said, many millions of pounds have been spent to date, and really what has been achieved. Tetra Tech have now been appointed. Tetra Tech, you recall, are the people who bought over White Young Green. Tetra Tech have been appointed, and they've come out to industry to ask a number of questions. Basically, what do you think we should do about this? They've been paid £2 million to do that assignment, at best I know. And other colleagues in the industry are flabbergasted that having spent another 2 years, they're back in industry saying, what should we do? And that's pretty much it, Mr. Chairman. I'm aware that I may have gone 1 minute over it, and I thank you for that indulgence. Sorry, more than that, 4 minutes over, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. McAteer. I know I wanted to make sure that you'd got everything you wish to comment in regards to your presentation, but we do thank you for your comments and thank you for the presentation in advance. I am opening up to the floor for members who wish to comment. First one is Councillor Ferguson. Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. McAteer, and thank you very much for the presentation. Obviously, I've spoken with you before about my boy jumping it with being with a MyDA, and actually where I live, it is something that I'm very keen to see remediation done as quickly as possible. And I feel the frustration of many residents and many people in the area about how long it has taken. I was at that meeting 6 weeks ago with the stakeholder group where it was my impression, and I've just checked with Alderman Hussey, who was also at the meeting, that our understanding that all options are on the table, because I know there's a keenness to remove some of the waste within the site. Within your presentation, I noticed that you had the 5 zones, and I know that's been updated to 10 zones, and they've identified 2 zones in particular with worrying potential contaminants which do need to be removed. I'm just wondering, have you been made aware of the presentations? And I know they're on the DARE website, and kind of your critical eye over it to kind of get any feedback on what you think of the latest information since the case has actually come out. I know there's been a lot of information not being given to people because of the case, and that had been a huge frustration and led to many people alluding to things because they were worried that it was being covered up, like you said in your presentation. I also wanted to check if Mr. Killen, who you've spoke on, was invited to that stakeholder group, because I'd be keen to have the local residents' voices there. So just my quick question on your presentation is, what is your views of the current stakeholder updated information since the case? I know it's gone from 5 zones to 10 zones, and how would you recommend tackling that? But I appreciate you coming today to present it, because I think it's a very important issue and it's something that we want to see sorted sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor, for the question. As you may know, when we first gave a presentation, we were punching in the dark because we didn't really know the exact nature of the waste or the quantity, so we were feeling around based on estimates. But the model we have doesn't change, because whether there was 500,000 tonnes or 1 million tonnes, the model is quite similar. So further information has been provided by Tetra Tech a number of weeks ago, and we don't really change in our position about how the problem can be solved. It doesn't really take us away from our initial suggestion about how this should be fixed. And there is conflicting information coming from these various stakeholder groups. Mr. Killen wasn't invited. PCI Consulting was not invited, despite the fact that we were put on a nominee list many years ago. So there's a bit of management of information here, which is less than candid. I'll put it that way. I'm not looking to criticise anyone at this stage, but there does seem to be a lack of candour in the way in which this has been brought forward. And we're really, quite frankly, not that interested anymore in playing along with this sort of charade of let's pretend they've stakeholder meetings and discuss it. I think that's the sort of sentiment. So, but no, we wasn't invited, nor will we. But we can deal with the issues as they've been presented now by Tetra Tech. So.
Thank you for your response, and thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Jackson, Christopher.
Yeah, Cormac Chair, and thanks to Daniel and everybody for the presentation. And I suppose just on behalf of Sinn Féin, and welcome you to the committee, and I suppose express our frustrations that on the lack of progress on making the Moboy site safe. And that's, I think we've all got the exact same goal here, is they make the site safe and undo the huge environmental damage that's been caused by the illegal dumping on the site. And I know, Daniel, you've rightly pointed out that this is the biggest environmental disaster in modern European times. So it's it's something that it's despicable that we've got this on our doorstep, and we all need to be working to try and address it. Now, I wouldn't entirely agree that the stakeholder engagement process is a charade. It's we recognise the importance of it, and I suppose as we're working towards a solution, the engagement with all stakeholders, including yourselves, is really important. There's and I know quite a lot of the delays have been put down to the legal situation, and I'm hoping now that as that comes to a conclusion, then we can start to see more action taken on the actual the problem at my boy. But I just again, I'm just coming in and on behalf of the party, welcoming you to the committee. But I would seriously encourage everybody to take part in the stakeholder engagement groups as we work together to come to a solution together that suits everybody, because it will take everybody working together to get a solution to this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce.
Thank you. Or do you wish to comment there, Mr. McAteer? Or I didn't really remark a question on that, but I will note Councillor Jackson's comments, unless you wish to pass on anything, or we can move on to the next speaker.
Well, I'm grateful for Councillor Jackson's welcome and comments, which are always helpful. The only point I'd make is this, and I don't wish to be disrespectful to any stakeholder engagement. Of course, we want to see stakeholder engagement, but just so there is no doubt, we believe that the process by which that has been delivered is misconceived from the start. No one really has looked at how can this be procured. What powers of procurement do the Derry City Council and Staban Council have, for example? What is this all going to cost? How is it going to be financed? Who's going to pay at the end of it? None of these questions have been addressed. And to be honest with you, we do not accept that the existence of a parallel criminal process should have inhibited that process. And really what we say, and the evidence stands up, is a decision had been taken early on that we say was misconceived. So if we're to remain involved, we would prefer to deal directly with local councillors who all do seem to have, well, at least the biggest majority seem to have an interest in fixing this problem, as Councillor Jackson said. So I'm very, very grateful and acknowledge the support from Sinn Féin. That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill, Maeve.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of People Before Profit, just to thank Daniel and his team for the presentation. We absolutely agree with you that my boy is an environmental disaster, and it's really a symptom of neglect in the North's planning and environmental regulation system. I suppose just a few points on the presentation. Firstly, kind of with regards to zero waste and our council's progress in that, like that was born from the disaster that my boy was. So it's about learning the lessons from my boy, which I think, as well as remediating the site, we also need to learn the lessons and how we deal with waste. So, that's why the council have a zero waste circular economy strategy, or one of the reasons why, because of learning the lessons from my boy. I think the Tetra Tech presentation that's on the department's website, I think they're indicating that there's now almost 2 million tonnes of waste there, as opposed to 1 million that was within your presentation, as far as I'm aware. But there are bigger illegal dumps now in Europe, so we're not the biggest anymore. And unfortunately, from a European Commission point of view, they have closed their case on the environmental crime within my boy, because Brexit's rolled out the enforcement action from Europe. So that's no longer a channel. So I suppose kind of like on your point around the A6, like the initial environmental impact assessment that was done for the A6, it didn't actually mention the almost 2 million tonnes of illegally dumped waste that was in it. So there is a new environmental impact assessment that's required for that actually acknowledges my boy. I suppose, obviously we, People for Profit in particular, have been working alongside the activists who've been trying to call for action on my boy and remediation for my boy for a number of years. And it was Eamon and McAdams who proposed that my boy was on every ENR meeting here until it is properly remediated. So we have a real commitment to ensure that, you know, Maboy is properly and safely remediated. And the difficulty was, up until the last few years, we didn't actually know what was in the site, in the landfill site, and that's why I think it's been important that the department has actually done the drilling to kind of figure out what, you know, what's actually in there, because nobody actually knew. And I suppose, like Councillor Ferguson, it was my understanding that there is going to be a hybrid approach to remediation, where some of it will stay in the ground and some of it will be, you know, taken out. But I suppose, kind of like on your expertise, I would like your opinion. Just kind of again from that Tetra Tech presentation, just there's worrying factors around the newly classified tarry deposits, with their ever expanding plummet pollution. So just your opinion on that, and then also the amount of waste that's now classified as metallic waste, which could well be the WEEE type waste from electrical equipment. And I suppose the worrying factor with that is that, you know, research shows that for the cadmium from just one mobile phone battery, it's enough to pollute 600,000 litres of water. And obviously, we all know Maboy runs alongside the River Faughan. And again, unfortunately, modeling's now suggesting that there are noxious contaminants reaching the Faughan via groundwater, in quantities that are above safe levels, which, you know, which is new information, because we know that, you know, the water is being regularly tested, and we raised this at the last full council meeting. But you know, it's still very, very worrying, the potential threat to the River Faughan, which is an ecosystem, which, you know, not only we depend on as residents of the city, but the Atlantic salmon, otters, who are a very endangered species on this island. And I suppose, I think a lot of the problems that you've highlighted, like spell out why, you know, there was a need for a public inquiry into Maboy as well, which was passed by the Assembly, but which Minister Putz decided to put on a shelf, despite the fact that it was, you know, a controversial, cross-cutting issue, and, you know, he should never have been allowed to, you know, put the public inquiry into illegal dumping in the north on a shelf, and not actually carry it forward, because you know, it's incredibly important that we actually, you know the full story behind Maboy, and I think it's welcome that there have been guilty pleas in the criminal trial. But I think we, you know, we really need to look at our environmental regulation system. So I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. McAteer, if you wish to respond.
My God, Councillor O'Neill, that's quite a barrage of questions at one time, and I must defer to your expertise in these matters. First of all, in terms of the quantity of the waste, I mean, your comment is precise, exposes precisely what's really been going on here. The most recent report quantifies 1.171 million tonnes, but if you've been told now it's 2 million tonnes, there's that moving feast. I think we can both agree that whether it's 1.1 million, a million, or 2 million, it's massive. And it's a very, very major problem. In relation to a public inquiry, as I said at the start, that's not really our business. A public inquiry, to my mind, will require going back into 1,500 years of history and working out why was it people had to turn to crime to get, you know, you open up a whole bag of frogs there that's really not our business. We're interested in fixing problems, not finding out who caused them. That's not really our business. That's there are people out there pay lots more money than us to spend time in that activity. I personally don't think we've got anything to add to that. That's not our business, as I said, to comment. We're interested in fixing the problem. We believe, as I say, that the process has been misconceived ab initio. Everyone in the street in Derry certainly knew that there was a serious problem out there. We have residents who were sitting there 24 hours a day watching industrial scale dumping going on at that site. They didn't need a report or boreholes or Tetra Tech or any other billion-dollar company to come and tell us there was a problem in Derry. We knew that. And I was at the meeting actually where Councillor McCann proposed, it was as a result of our presentation, he proposed a monthly management maintenance on the Maboy thing moving it forward. But he will know as well that for 60 years he's been going up and down to Belfast with the rest of us trying to get a university, and let's hope we don't go up and down to Belfast for another 60 years to fix my boy. And I say that as a local resident. So our position is very, very simple. Whether there was 500,000 tonnes or 1 million tonnes, the first step that should have been taken here was protection of the river. We were denied an opportunity to do that. There will be consequences arising from that and flowing from it. So that's the first thing. Our second stage was to analyse and quantify the waste, which we said we don't need. The people that now were supposed to prevent the thing from happening don't seem, to my mind, to be the ideal people to be now running the charge or leading the charge to fix it. So I'm not quite sure about what our bigger dumps there are in Europe, and I'm not sure that we can take any comfort out of saying that we're no longer the worst, we're only third from the bottom. I personally, as a dairy person, would have a higher aspiration, which is fixing problems now as they occur. I do understand the policy of when you have a major catastrophe, let's get a strategy document working. That's what I would call a Sir Humphrey response. Let's form a working group and talk about what lessons we've learned. It's a bit disingenuous for people to say, let's find out the lessons learned when there's 1 million tonnes of toxic waste sitting by our river. Now, the environmental people have turned up at every stakeholder meeting. They've protested. They've made their position clear. As I say, the dog's in the street about this. So I really would have no interest, and I've got strict instructions not to engage in any process where we get into some sort of a competition as to what way we think this should be fixed. We've put our cards on the table back in 2016. We think that this is a solution. If people want to engage with a solution, that's great. And if they don't, that's also great. We will not be joining another parade for 60 years while they sit around and talk about this every 6 months. We won't be getting involved in that. So, but I do take comfort from your acknowledgement that this is a catastrophe for dairy reputationally. We're trying to encourage investment outside of this country, into this country, and the fact that we cannot fix the biggest problem on our own doorstep, for whatever reason, in my mind, sends out a very worrying message. And I'm not here to get into whether it was the DUP or anybody else's, but I personally, I'm not sure where the budget comes from for these inquiries, but what I do know is there's going to need to be a big budget to fix this problem, and we need to do it quickly. That's my view. But again, your information on this is really helpful. We'll be happy to sit down and talk to you about this and meet with you and see if we can. We want to collaborate with everyone. So,
thank you, Master McCarthy. Thank you very much. Alderman Devaney's next on the list, Morris.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. On behalf of the DUP, can I just welcome Daniel and the team to the meeting here. And once again, thank you for the presentation. Daniel, you've raised many issues that has been raised before. How was this allowed to happen? And why was it not seen earlier? We understand all that. I take on board, look, and around the volume of waste that is dumped down there. It seems to be changing by different reports, but at the end of the day, it's a mess down there, so it is. You just can't pass it. And look, I remember your first presentation on this here and around the protective barrier. I would be very, very supportive of that type of barrier because it does protect the river. And look, coming from my own farming background and stuff like that there, I can understand it. Why these things take so long is that around. Sometimes our processes are very, very slow. Department processes are slow, and probably which has exacerbated this probably is the ongoing legal challenges, which has taken excessive time and getting that sorted out. The only question I have for you, and look, I'm very supportive of all the issues around here, is see the protective barrier. What is the cost of installing that, and what length of time would it take? Because we often hear about so many different components of waste, different levels of waste, bad waste. I know there's no good waste, but high levels of mismanaged waste in it. How long would it take for that barrier to go in, and the cost on around that, Declan? But once again, or Daniel, thank you very much for the presentation.
thank you, Councillor Devine, for the question. And as you may recall, that meeting was in fact Alderman McClintock and Councillor Donnelly proposed the follow-up. So you're quite right. I remember you were at that meeting the first time we had this. At the time, we were in a position to at best estimate the cost of protective barrier, but that was based on assumptions about levels of waste, quantities of waste, state of the waste, locality of the waste. Obviously, we have been deprived of that information until a few weeks ago. We've now instructed a team of consulting engineers to actually define the waste based on the information provided. They have now fed that, or we're feeding that to Keller, who actually designed the wall, as it were, the barrier, and then we will have a firm price for that at that stage. So we're not in a position today to tell you exactly what that will be, nor indeed would we, because that will be part of a complete solution. And I don't think what we want to be getting involved in here is developing partial solutions that may then have very serious commercial consequences down the line. So, for example, the barrier that we imagine has a lifetime of 25 years protection. That gives us the time to get all that stuff moved whilst also protecting the river. We quite clearly don't want a situation where someone does half a job, where they put in the protective barrier, leave the waste there, and then come back in 25 years and start suing everyone. So you will understand that as a businessman and a farmer, I'm sure. But it's certainly, what I can tell you is that the quote that we got at the time was about less than half the cost of the consultancy fees of the consultants who were put on site and paid by public funds to tell us what waste was there. Our answer was very simple: protect it first, and then you don't, so what is there becomes almost secondary. But they've gone a bit cart before horse, as I said.
Thank you, Mr. McAteer. Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Alderman Hussey, Derek.
Thank you for the presentation, Daniel. I understand that you've already engaged with party colleagues of my own based down in Londonderry. I'm looking at the recap page and I'm just trying to go through that. You've rightly identified a massive problem. And I'm sure, like myself, you don't believe in problems, you believe in solutions. And it is, as you rightly say, unforgivable that the years since the issue arose have not been used to devise those solutions, to be ready for whenever the legal aspects of the whole situation were sorted. Those solutions would have given the issues on cost, on risks, etc. They would have given some body to those questions. The responsibility, I've attended a few of the meetings now with regard to this, and whilst there seems to be one departmental lead, I'm sorry, but I see this as an interdepartmental issue, whether it be NIEA, whether it be DFI, whether it be DERA, it's interdepartmental and really needs a task and finish grouping. I'd be concerned at the aspect of council taking the leading role in this. I believe council has a major part to play in holding departmental officials' feet to the fire. Absolutely no doubt on that. And we have the expertise within council to enable us to analyse all that would be forthcoming. You state that politicians are acutely aware, I suppose to varying degrees, and I myself would say I'm very much on the varying, the varying degree aspect as opposed to the likes of Councillor O'Neill. And you said that they have tried their best. I would say some have tried their best. There have been issues with those further up the road who are further away from the problem, but certainly those in the locality are doing their damnedest to get a solution to this and to have that solution on the ground. I agree with the analysis that the environmental security of the site is paramount prior to the implementation of whatever solution or solutions are devised. You are coming forward with a particular solution or set of solutions. Others will come forward with others. The analysis of those then needs to be completed and action once we just determine the way forward. But I sincerely thank you for your presentation. It's certainly interesting. I suppose another issue there, perhaps this is a question. You've talked about the 1 million tonnes of waste that is on site. There is a suggestion that it's actually more than that, and that there are areas wherein there may be other toxic waste present. Have you any comment on that? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hussey, for your comments. Just one or two observations. Yes, we want to be solution-led. Secondly, I don't imagine for one moment that the council should take responsibility for fixing this per se, because that obviously exposes the council to potential liabilities and all sorts of complex legal issues. However, what I really mean is, I think you put it much more articulately than I can, holding people's feet to the fire and making them more accountable. Because without the support of our local council, I don't think we're able to deliver our solution. But if we do have the support of our council, it's local people with local interest fixing local problems. I think we will see some real action. We also don't say that we have a monopoly on solutions. We don't say that at all. It'd be great to see all sorts of people coming forward. However, back as far as 2019, we suggested that the council could simply put out expressions of that, invite people in with expressions of interest how to fix this problem. It was confirmed by the department that there was no inhibition why the council couldn't do that. But tragically, one of the local councillors, I don't think she's a councillor anymore, said it was too early to involve the private sector, which was an opportunity lost, perhaps with the benefit of hindsight. So we think as long as the local councillors, we know, we have personal experience of how local councillors make people accountable, and we welcome that. But I think that the way that this project has been run to date has been led by a committee and I think we know how committees led by Sir Humphreys can end up. It's going to get passed from department to department. So if the Derry City Council are prepared to come on board in a supportive or a caretaker or a watchdog type role or an oversight partner, we would welcome that. And get some councillors into the room with us and see exactly what it is we're doing every step of the way, so that there's complete transparency in what we're doing. That's what we want. And what you may or may not know, Councillor Alderman Hussey, is this: is that there are enormous amounts of innovative procurement processes that now exist to fix this problem. Because it's not just a technical challenge here. How will it be procured? How will it be paid for? Who will pay for it? I'm not sure that the route to finance to Europe is absolutely closed, because from that emerges a whole complex, potentially £1 billion legal case coming out of this. So those are the sorts of issues I think that we could now lift with a scruff of the neck. And again, finally, my frustration is that I've seen up close how efficient this council has worked in all areas. And I just think it's a tragedy that, you know, that they aren't given more responsibility here, rather than let the department take the lead with the council falling in behind. I think the power base should be reversed. But thanks for your comments.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Chair, any comment on the volume and type of waste on site?
We're satisfied, Councillor, that our proposal does accommodate that. In fact, we anticipated that there would be volumes of toxic waste there, and what we imagine and propose, well, we'll address that and we'll deal with it. There are no surprises, in other words. So,
thank you, Councillor Riley. Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for bringing me in, and thanks, Dan, for the presentation here this afternoon. It's been a really interesting conversation over the last hour. You know, hearing from other councillors as well about what this means for the environment, and by the environment, it's not limited to what's been illegally dumped in the ground, but also the impact on the final part of the A6 into the city, which is obviously affected by this. I suppose I don't really have any particular questions for those making the presentation, other than to say I think that this is exactly why we wanted to have this item on as a monthly item on the agenda, to try and keep some momentum, as Alderman Hussey's phrase about keeping the department's feet to the fire, to make sure that this didn't drop off the radar, either for the local council or other statutory bodies. And the slide that you had, Daniel, about the time frame and the difficulties with the time frame over the years, I think shows that there is a huge frustration, within the local elected body about the length of time this has taken to move it in any way forward. So I look forward to seeing a greater degree of urgency from other statutory bodies on this. But I know repeatedly the answer has been, oh, well, this is because a legal case is underway. I think that we need to get to a stage where we are talking about what it will be done to fix the problem, as opposed to dealing with who's responsible for it. And I think as a council, we need to be consciousness of the fact that it's not just, as I said at the start, about the huge environmental damage that is done. It's affecting the future development of the city and the future growth of the city in relation to the impact of the A6. And that's why I think it does show it should cut across a range of government departments as opposed to being left with a single government department to deal with. Thank you, Chair.
Right. One final comment there, Councillor Ferguson wishes to come on briefly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And very briefly, I just wanted to check, is PCI aware that the department is doing a planned engagement with the industry, which closes on Friday? It would be really interesting to see if you were willing to put forward your, because I know that's what they're looking for, is emerging remedial options and techniques for consideration for the department, and that closes on Friday. And if it's not a process user looking to engage, maybe it'd be something that you'd be willing to share with us, your 2016 report, so that we are aware when we go to appraise it and do the scoring with the stakeholder group in January. Thank you.
Again, thanks for the question. And just to pick up a comment that Councillor Riley made, he said urgency was important. In fact, the SDLP MLA, Sinead McLaughlin, has raised this in Stormont to say that this does need to be urgently addressed. So I'm aware of the political people trying to make this, trying to fix this problem. And in the answer to Councillor Ferguson's question, we don't really have an appetite for engaging with the latest episode of the department's response. They've put out 7 questions to industry, and all the professional people in this country are saying, what's going on here? Whether anybody got ideas how we might fix this problem? They use the expression charade, so we won't be the answer to that question. However, in parallel to that, we've been invited in early January to go and meet with the leaders of the department to tell them our ideas. Because there's a potential legal case now with the department, we have a less than big appetite for that type of engagement. We suspect at this stage that will be a fact-finding exercise by them to try and discredit our proposal. So we really have tried to engage with them for the past 7 years, longer in fact. They've had every opportunity to engage, they've failed to do so, and we don't really want to be part of an organisation that may actually be getting sued for all this at the end of it. So our position is clear. We say that we can develop a proposal. Someone needs to take this with the scruff of the neck. I don't think we need to necessarily hold the department's feet to the fire. I think we just need to ask them to step aside and let people get on with fixing this problem. And let the department of course the department will have to have a contribution. They will be there to provide information as it's required. But we would be less enthusiastic, Councillor Ferguson, about engaging with them for reasons that I've now explained. So, but we may go along, having taken legal advice, we may attend a meeting with them in January. But as I said, we wouldn't be keen to be telling them any more about our project.
Thank you, Mr. McAteer, and thank you for the presentation, and thank all the members for their input. We've had a detailed discussion, and we've spent our time going through this, and I do thank you that the topic's been raised, and we will give you opportunity now to leave the meeting as we move on with the rest of the business. But thank you very much.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, if I could just leave you with one final thought. We did speak with John Kilby and Karen Phillips, who went away to explore what legal powers the Derry City Council have, and it would be very, very helpful to have an update about that in due course. And I will write back to the council members in due course about that and keep them posted about our efforts.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you for your time.
Members, it is a public meeting and we can continue, and we'll move on to item 6, which is the chairperson's business. I thankfully have no chairperson's business. The only thing that I will do is I do believe this is Councillor Norris's first meeting in the ENR, and I will welcome him to the committee. And well, that's the ENR committee, so this is it. Right, members, the next item is item number 7, matters arising from the minutes of meeting. Has anyone got any?
Chair, on accuracy,
Alderman Hussey.
I've just noted there that I'm not recorded as being in attendance, but I have spoken to meetings, so I must have been there.
That'll be noted, Alderman Hussey. Anyone have anything in matters arising which they wish to raise? Alderman.
Thanks, sir. If I can start with ER 250, the Mornside Walk sign matter was raised by Councillor Edwards. Restoration plans would be presented to a future committee meeting. Is there any timeline on that, when we can expect it?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, we've had a number of internal meetings with officers across the Directorate in terms of this. It is actually quite complex when you look at land ownership and leases and all of these sorts of things. So we've been working our way through that. What we would suggest, members, if you're happy with it, we would like to maybe have a workshop with the members of the DEA in January to work through that, explain it all to everybody in terms of where we are. And, you know, then we'll bring a report to the committee following on from that. You know, I think there's a few clarifications from different landowners, as you know, that, you know, there have been some changes recently, etc. We've had officers out walking around the site, and there are sort of possible developments in and around the wider area. So if you're happy, we will organise a workshop with members in January, and then we will bring a report in February following that.
Thank you, Karen. Moving on then. Page 51 and 52, signage issue, ER 254 and 256. It's not with regard to the bilingual signage. Members will remember I brought a motion to council with regard to the wishing well signage around this area. Has anything happened with regard to that particular motion yet?
Yeah, Chair, we have surveyed all the sites. We've identified all of the issues and the budget required to address them. So that's with the Chief Finance Officer to see if we can identify a sum of money to carry out the works. So there is a report that has gone to him on that, and subject to his comments, we can bring it to the next committee, but it has been done.
Appreciate that, Conor. Thank you, Chair. And finally, the COVID recovery small settlements, the 222 properties that have been identified. Has there been any engagement with actual property owners around this yet?
No, not at the moment, Chair. The intention is that we'll engage with the property owners as soon as we complete the technical assessment. At this stage, and I think it was reported at committee last month and back in July, we need to understand, I suppose, the scale and complexity of each of the properties and to assess that against the budget before we start to engage, as there may well be, whilst it's our desire, as I said previously, to cover all of those properties, we may have to introduce further criteria around eligibility should the budget not match the level of need that is identified. Okay.
I appreciate that, Chair, through you to Tony. And I suppose expectations vis-a-vis what we can actually do. And we've already seen that over this last couple of days with a council-led project. So I think perhaps the sooner we can get some actual information to folk on that, the better it would be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor O'Neill, ER 253, Rights of Nature.
Thanks, Chair. It was just a note there. Last week, Ireland, the Citizens' Assembly was released on biodiversity, and the Citizens' Assembly overwhelmingly voted to recommend changing the constitution to include rights of nature, which I think it's a monumental step in the rights of nature movement globally, for Ireland to be looking at this in their constitution. So, you know, that the proposed constitutional change would recognise nature as a holder of legal rights comparable to companies or people. And I think, you know, as us being the first council to recognise the rights of nature, and now for this step to happen in the south, I just think it's important to note. And I think, you know, we as a council should look and see kind of what are the steps, you know, the next steps that are coming out of the Citizens' Assembly, you know, following this recommendation. Thanks.
That'll be noted, Councillor O'Neill. Thank you. No other matters rising, members? Right, members, in that case, the following items are open for information and I will run through them here quickly and you can, if you wish to comment, you can come in. And item 8 is the building control applications. I don't see anyone's hand up. Item 9 is the former DSNI station in Castlederg and Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you'll be aware that I raised this issue at full council in September, and I raised concerns at that stage around essentially the transparency of the process. And since that, I've been able to establish, with some difficulty, I suppose, that the interested party, which was previously referred to as a community interest group, is known as Derg and District Cultural Association, if I'm correct. And as an elected representative in Castlederg and as a resident in Castlederg, I have never heard tell of this community group, and any person I've spoke to has never heard tell of this group. I've been a councillor for 14 years. I've worked with many's a community group, and indeed before my 14 years as a councillor, and I have never heard tell of this group. My concerns at that time, Chair, were only, I suppose, raised further since I listened to the Mark Patterson show, who had a highly respected journalist from Ulster Herald, Mr. Rogers, on, who alleged through his information that this interested community group was in fact a front for the Orange Order, who were bankrolling the group to purchase the former PSNI station in Castlederg. So that, if true, as alleged, certainly raises my concern a lot higher than it was before, Chair. I then seen a tweet actually on social media from the Development Trust, Northern Ireland, who said that they were in Castlederg helping a local community group with the transfer or purchase of the former lands at the PSNI station in Castlederg. So I took it upon myself, Chair, to contact the Development Trust just to see, you know, obviously as an elected representative in the area, what the intentions of the group were for the land. I asked them different questions, Chair, but they was able to confirm that yes, that the community group was Castlederg and District Cultural Association. And when I asked them, you know, has this group any history of developing land? He said he wasn't aware of any. I asked him, was he aware was the group a constituted group? He said he didn't think they were, but possibly were in the process of becoming constituted, and possibly were in the process of registering as a public limited company with charitable status, which is all well and good. But he did say to me that he was quite concerned at the lack of seemingly lack of transparency within the group. And that would seem to be the case, Chair, when you read the report. The report states that this community group has made no contact with council officers, despite council saying that they had an interest, albeit in tandem with an arm's length body of the housing executive, namely Apex. I also asked him, Chair, was he aware of the allegations about who potentially were bankrolling? And he said he wasn't aware of that, and essentially that wasn't a concern for them, which raises further queries in my mind. You'll be aware, Chair, I raised this at full council previously, and it's been raised here today again. Yet, Chair, when I asked the representative of Development Trust Northern Ireland who was the contact for the said community group, he said the person I had been dealing with is none other than yourself, Chair, Councillor Kerrigan. So, Chair, that begs the question, why, when I raised it at full council, had you not declared an interest on it when you spoke to it? It's on the agenda today, but yet no, you've declared no interest in it. So that, to me, Chair, raises serious concerns. And if the allegations are true around the Orange Order bankrolling this community group, then I think it's incumbent on this committee that we would contact again the policing board, who I'm made aware are to make a decision on it tomorrow with a recommendation to sell it to the community group. I think we should be contacting them, expressing our grave concerns over what I have raised here today, Chair, and I have a proposal here which I'll submit to the clerk, if you'll permit me, Chair. Go
ahead, Councillor McKay. We're going to take a 2-minute recess here, members, just to see here.
Chair, can I ask, well, what's the purpose of the recess? Okay, thank you.
Chair, Councillor Boyle here. Those online didn't pick up the reason for the purpose of the recess.
Yep, Chair, how about to advise you to take advice on whether this should be discussed on open or confidential business, given the nature of the allegations and discussion.
Thank you, Connor.
Members, we're back from recess and Karen's coming on now.
Yeah, Chair. Members, I just felt it was appropriate just to have a quick word with the City Solicitor, and really just members to remind everyone that conflict of interest for members are a matter for the member, and indeed members should declare an interest where they have a pecuniary interest in an item on the agenda. So members, we are joined by the City Solicitor if any member would like to ask for further advice. However, we can take the resolution, members, if you're happy to do so. Thank you. Okay, sorry, Chair. Yeah, if we can just put the resolution onto the screen.
Chair, I can't hear what's happening.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry, Christopher. We haven't just, my apologies. I was just discussing with Karen there. I hadn't just got around to speaking yet. Members, in light of it, I am declaring a non-pecuniary interest, and I will, at this stage, I'm going to ask Councillor McHugh to take the chair on this item, if he's content enough there. And I'm content enough that, well, I'll leave it to him to put the item to the meeting.
Okay, members, kind of caught off the hop there, but suppose you have the motion on the screen in front of you, so
I'll second it.
I presume, yeah, seconded by Councillor Jackson. I presume, members, that it'll have to go to a vote, and Councillor Kerrigan, just for the record, has left the chamber at this point, and the Vice Chair, myself, is chairing it. So, Karen, do you want to take us through the vote?
Yeah.
Or sorry, members, I suppose there should be another opportunity for other members to speak to the item before we take the proposal. So I'm going to go to Councillor Ferguson. Go ahead.
Chair, thank you. I think Councillor Edwards wanted in there too, but Chair, I'm happy for us to go ahead with this. I think some of the concerns that you've raised are valid, and we aren't aware of the background to it. You've obviously done quite a bit of research outside of this committee. I would like to hear more on it. I think, especially being a councillor for so many years within the area and not aware of the community organisation, I see no harm in contacting the policing board and expressing our concerns and putting a hold on it until we know more about it. But I'm more than happy to support the proposal on the floor at the moment.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, thank you, and apologise to you as chair and the former chair that left seat there for being late to the meeting. Chair, like yourself, I share major concerns about this, and like yourself, I've been unable to uncover the true identity of the so-called community organisation in Castlederg and who the members are. And Chair, that's liaising with all community groups from every side of the spectrum. In Castlederg, no one seems to know who they are. As you're aware, Chair, there's been interest in Apex House, and I think that would be hugely beneficial for Castlederg. The current police station is a stain on the main street. It's in a prime area. It needs to be redeveloped, and I'm aware, Chair, and I've pursued or pushed my party colleagues to raise it at policing board as well. And in October we were given up till December to reopen the process. I'm aware, Chair, that meeting is tomorrow. The policing board is coming up in the policing board tomorrow. And I take it, Chair, that as soon as possible means that, yeah, we'll get that in hopefully before tomorrow's meeting and to the policing board for consideration, Chair. I would just like to that our letter would form part of their decision making. We're the local council, we're the representative body for Castlederg. I would like to see our views heard on this at policing board. I've written to the policing board, and my SDLP colleague Mark H. Durkin has, and our former member Sinead McLaughlin has also raised this issue, Chair. But yep, I'm fully supportive of this here. But I would like to see more detail coming out of this here. To me, Chair, it seems to be very, very shady and lacking details, Chair. But yep, fully support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. It's well enough known I am a member of the Orange Order in the Castlederg area, and I'm certainly not aware that the Orange Order is purchasing this particular property. At the same time, to suggest that the Orange Order is not a community organisation, to me, is wrong as well, because as far as the Order is concerned, we're very much an organisation in the community with community facilities throughout our Derg area. That said, it has already been stated by Councillor Edwards that this is a prime area. It's a prime area close to or adjacent, immediately adjacent to the town centre. Personally, I don't think social housing at that site is what the town centre needs to increase its vibrancy. I believe that business is needed there. I don't know what the plans are, but this cultural organisation, I'd just love to know what their plans are. If their plans were something similar to what we have on the other side of Castlederg, namely an enterprise centre, which is fully occupied, by the way, an enterprise centre bringing business into the town centre, I would certainly be supportive of it. I'm sure all of the issues that have been highlighted by Councillor McHugh and others have been relayed to the representatives on the policing board, and those issues will be covered and dealt with by the policing board. The policing board have agreed that they delayed their determination on this. They're due to make a determination tomorrow. I'm sure that all of those items will be considered by the policing board, and I think we should let the policing board determine how the item is taken forward, whether it's a unknown community organisation, and even if it was the Orange Order, it's a community organisation perfectly entitled to undertake community activities. I don't believe it is the Orange Order. As I say, I'm a member of the Orange Order, and I'm certainly not aware that Kiln District LOL number 12 has determined that they are entering into this type of activity. I would welcome economic development on the site. It's mentioned there about Apex Housing, but I also believe that council themselves have expressed an interest in part of this site for a recycling centre. So there's a lot of items around this particular site that are worthy of discussion. And but as to who develops the site, I think we leave that to the determination of the policing board. And let them get on with it, and the sooner the better, because it's rightly been said, this site has been lying derelict for some time, and it deserves to be opened up for the benefit of all the people of Castlederg. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey, and I think I have Alderman Devaney online. Go ahead, Morris.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for allowing me in. And look, the questions you have raised here, surely the policing board have vetted every organisation that comes and looking for, to purchase or take over the station. And surely those processes would be in place. I would expect an organisation to get there, to any organisation coming in, to be heavily vetted and, reach the mark where the criteria is reached, that they're even acceptable to go on the list, to be even thought of for receiving. Now, I think for yourself, Chair, the problem is maybe that is out yourself, as you've heard, maybe that the Orange Order has been involved in it, because you've raised the Orange Order a number of times before, and maybe that is what has irked you. And I'm in the same mind as Alderman Hussey. Look, the site needs developed. It needs to develop, and look, I think the right format is to leave it to the policing board. Surely they're well enough grafted and around the issue who this site suits best, and that's the way I've been thinking of it, Chair or Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Just in response to that, Alderman Devaney, I didn't raise the Orange Order until today, and it was in reference to an interview on Radio Foil by a highly respected Ulster Herald journalist. Thank you. Yeah, members, there's no other indicated speakers at this stage, so I'll propose that we move forward. Sorry, I have Councillor Jackson now indicated. Councillor Jackson, go ahead.
No, thanks, Chair. And just in response to some of the comments in relation to the time frame, I appreciate that the policing board are due to meet tomorrow, and it's great to hear that that some parties are stating that their policing board representatives will support our council's stance on this. But given that this is already council stated position, and if the proposal is passed today, I would suggest that officers would work with the mayor's office to make sure that the communication is sent to the chair of the policing board in advance of the meeting tomorrow. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, well, Chair, certainly depending on what members resolve today, we can potentially make contact. Clearly, the resolution would be a recommendation of this committee that would need to be ratified by full council if it was resolved by the committee today. However, absolutely, we could action it as soon as possible. Chair, if you're happy, I can take the vote.
Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. And members, you're aware of the proposal that's on the screen. And I will ask for or against, and I'll start with Alderman Devaney.
Against, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Against.
Alderman Kerrigan is declared an interest. Councillor Boyle.
For.
Okay. Councillor Stephen Edwards.
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor McGinley.
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor McHugh.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Norris. Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Riley.
4.
Thank you. And so that's passed, members. Thank you.
Okay, members, that brings us to our next item. So I'll ask that Councillor Kerrigan be brought back in to chair the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Councillor McHugh, for chairing. Item 10, sorry, members, is open for information. Anyone wish to comment? No one online. Right. Item 11 is the flooding update. No. No. Or sorry, Councillor, you want on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to know what, coming new into the committee, I would like to know the update on it. I think it's very good coming from the area. I live in Eglinton, and one of the areas that floods quite a lot. And on a personal level, like I've never flooded myself, but I'll be down with the neighbours who do flood. I was standing down there the last time with the sandbags, and to be honest, it's the sort of last defence when the sandbags come. The water. And Councillor Ferguson was standing with me carrying the sandbags, and it's not good. People are living in fear every day. Every time it rains. 2 weeks ago, they were brushing water down their drives in St. Canice's Park, There's other issues in there. A farmer raised about the valves down at the embankment. It just interests me because I walk down there quite a lot and I never even really thought about it. But apparently one of the valves isn't working at the minute, So that floods up on the fields and they have raised their concerns about that, So it just, on a personal level, I just think people are living in fear every day, every time it rains in all areas, in the whole farm area. That's all I have to say.
Next speaker on that item is Councillor McGinley. Emma.
Chair, and as a councillor for the Moor, I'm disappointed that every time this item is brought forward, there's no update for Foyle Road, Lecky Road, or Coshowan. Councillor Patricia Logue has previously raised that this is an area that floods every time there's even the tiniest bit of rain. The people that live there deserve to be getting the same importance given to their situation as what those in Drumahoe and Eglinton are receiving. Over the weekend there was some rain, Coshowan and the Lecky Road were flooded. It's not within any of these updates. So going forward, we've met with DFA Roads, we've met with DFA Rivers to try and address this within the Moor and within that specific area. So I would ask council officers that when they're getting these updates in relation to flooding, that they're also asking about Lecky Road, Coshowan and Foyle Road, because it's an ongoing issue. It's been going on for a long, long time, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. The people in those areas deserve resolutions to the flooding. So I would just ask that that's raised whenever these updates are being put together. Thank you.
And Councillor Martin Riley.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks to officers for having this on the agenda. Specifically updating it from last month, where we wanted to see this. I take the sentiment of the previous speaker about how this report needs to be council district wide, not specifically one or two areas. Through you, Chair, 3.3 on the report deals with Drumahoe flooding, and it talks about the department bringing back options or discussing it again in early 2023. And I think it's worth putting on record that that's already a slip in time frame compared to what the outgoing Minister O'Dowd had said in his answer to Sinead McLaughlin MLA when he said that the department would have options brought back before Christmas. So I'm disappointed to see that the department is now saying early 2023 when it was meant to be at the end of this year. So hopefully it'll not be too long into 2023 before we get the report, because residents in that area, and I'm sure right across areas that are flooded in the past, want to see action taken immediately and really are frustrated by what they perceive as ongoing delays and the evidence from the department isn't doing anything to help alleviate the concerns that they have when they are telling us that they'll be bringing reports back before Christmas, and now in the month of Christmas they're telling us, oh, it will not be until early next year. Thanks, Chair.
Next on the list is Councillor Boyle. John.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll keep it brief, Chair. Councillor Riley has spoken eloquently enough in relation to some of the concerns around the nature of the reports that are coming back to us. But again, I would also lend my voice to the concerns raised by Councillor McGinley. Sometimes I think we can all be guilty of, looking at the things that are most prominent, and that's not to downplay the significance and the challenges that people in Drumahoe and people in Eglinton and Ivy Mead have experienced. But it's very obvious to me, as a representative for the Moore district electoral area, that the issues in relation to Lecky Road, Foyle Road, and all the way out through Caushone, they seem to get a little bit forgotten about. And so again, I would encourage, like Councillor McGinley, that officers would also bear all of that in mind when they're talking to the relevant department officers across the board, because again, this is a constant problem. It's nothing new, and in fact, these particular areas of the city, they've been flooding for decades, and nobody's ever come up with a solution, and nobody's ever come up with a good answer as to the reason why. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to be too presumptuous, because I'm certainly not a water engineer. But it's important that we keep the pressure on in relation to all areas of concern right across city and district, and that includes the areas referenced by Councillor McGinley and myself this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Councillor Edwards, Stephen.
Chair, thank you very much. Chair, 3.2 there, Strabane Public Realm Scheme. This is a scheme, Chair. I know this report's about flooding, but this is a scheme that was first touted years ago. It received planning permission 3.5 years ago, and yet here we are, Chair, with no budget. There's no works happening, and I think it was originally meant to be £7 million. I imagine it's going to be a lot more now, given inflation. But I'm just wondering, is there any update council has on pursuing this? Because I know council were pursuing this with Department for Communities, and one of the things I did, Chair, before Stormer come down, was urge the DFC minister to try as best as she can to try and get this signed off before, and get the money out before Stormont came down. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we're sort of left in a state of limbo. But sure, I would appreciate if they're officers able to give the update now, or I'm happy to receive it in email or a future committee report. But I just think it's a major scheme for Strabane. It's sort of fallen by the wayside in recent months, Chair. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, members, just to reassure members that it hasn't fallen by the wayside. We are actively working with the department on it, and we'll bring an update report to members next month, if at all possible, given the timescales for over Christmas. But I hope to bring one in January.
Just an update on that. Is there a suggestion that the public realm scheme for Strabane, I know this was regarding Newton Stewart, by the way, but the public realm scheme for Strabane, is there a suggestion that financial constraints may mean a reconfiguration of some of the issues within that?
There hasn't been any decisions made on it one way or another at the minute, so that's.
Next on the list, members, is Councillor Ferguson. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the update. And thank you for Councillor Norris for raising it. I wanted to check, Karen, obviously within the report it says that a number of homeowners have applied for the flood protection grant, but I know especially with the likes of St. Canice's, when we were there together, some of them are housing executive and housing association. I'm wondering whether have we any update of whether they're applying for or putting their own flood prevention and properties, because that was a big frustration for many residents, that that they couldn't have access to it because they were housing executive. And the only other thing I would say is I know we put out emergency numbers whenever there's been a number of days where people have been really concerned about the flooding and stuff and emergency numbers, but preemptively, I'm wondering whether we could share some things like clearing gullies and reporting gullies, as well as I've had a number of storm drains blocked within the rivers, and people have come to me and I've been able to get contact for them. But whether on our website we can make people aware that they can report these preemptively before the rain. But just more the housing associations and housing executive houses, Karen, thank you.
Through you, Chair, members, you will recall that we, whenever we had the notice of motion in relation to this particular item coming monthly before, members, we had agreed the agencies that we would ask for an update every month, and we do ask the Housing Executive for an update every month. Really what we've been doing is collating the information that we've received back. We also had agreed that any points that members raised at the committee would be fed back to the various agencies, so we can now do that in terms of this and asked for an update. I wouldn't hold the information now, but we can certainly ask the information as the other points that members have raised today in relation to the other areas, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Councillor Kelly. Dan.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks to officers for the report insofar as it goes. My query really is around whether council officers are, all of the information that comes to council, is it being collated through one person? And I ask because during summer, a lot of it was being dealt with adverse weather and community resilience team. And I'm just thinking back to the meeting on the 2nd of September, Chair. We had a number of statutory agencies attend that meeting, and they referenced a whole swathe of areas that's experienced degrees of impact from the summer flooding, and there's a number of action proposals coming out from that meeting, but they've never appeared in the updates to the committee or to council, and I'm just wondering where they are and why they don't appear in these updates. I mean, is the information coming in to very different and being collated through a single source? Just the action points are being taken forward, because I attended a public meeting just last week in Glenmornan, which has experienced persistent rivers and DFI roads on actions that have been taken forward from the summer, and this included a flood risk assessment for the village and a drainage. There's none of that information coming forward, so I know that work's going on, but it's not appearing anywhere, and I suppose it irritates me that I'm not seeing. There was 50 or 60 different places across the district going back. I just need an assurance that we are, the information that is coming in it is appearing on papers. And that things like the assessments coming in for Glenmornan and other places, why are they not appearing on these?
Yeah, through you, Chair, members, if I can come in, and sorry, Councillor Kelly, your line wasn't very well, so you were dropping in and out. So I think really just the point being made that I think when we suggested having this item as a standing item on the Environment and Regeneration Committee, we did engage with the Adverse Weather Working Group and indeed the officers that, if you like, administer that particular working group in order to ensure that the contacts that they had in place, who fed in and indeed who attended that workshop of the multi-agency group back in September, were captured, and we have been actively writing out to them to ask them to basically advise them of what members have decided and to ask them for the updates so that we can provide them to committee. Now, members, we are providing the updates that we get. So if the information, any information is not appearing on your papers, it's because we haven't received it from the agencies. It actually was quite difficult to actually get some responses in relation to this. We again will follow up with the concerns of members in terms of that, to try and ensure that the agencies are providing a comprehensive update to the committee on a monthly basis, and we will follow up on that and send the minutes of today's meeting to them so that they're aware of members' concerns in relation to that. Thank you, Chair.
Next on the list is Councillor O'Neill. Maeve.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose just to echo Councillor McGinley's comments just around the Moor area, down in Foy Road and area, also kind of like on the side of things, the Craig and Burn area seems in the last few heavy rainfall seems to have had very significant flooding. The bywash down in the Craig and Burn Country Park. Sorry, I've got a dog just kind of annoying me there. Sorry. Yeah, it's just to kind of highlight, those other areas. And I'm just wondering with the Craig and Burn Country Park bywash, do we expect the flooding in that area to improve with the works that are going on in the Craigan Reservoir? Also, just kind of in relation to flooding, as I kind of had highlighted in last month's Environment and Regeneration about DFI, their strategy in Newry to cut down 200-year-old oak trees as part of a flood alleviation plan. And at 2 o'clock one morning, I suppose a question that we could put to DFI for the next report is kind of what considerations being given to impacts on and the retention of mature trees in Drumahoe and in Eglinton that are affected by the proposed flood relief schemes. Because I know that local communities feel very strongly about these mature trees in particular, and their actual health in flood prevention. And I know that NI Water is also part of the statutory bodies that we're in touch with. There was I know there was concerns raised, particularly in the Ivy Mead area, around the drainage systems and things, the sewage system, sorry, there. And I'm just wondering, have NI Water brought back any specific information with regard to the impact of the various housing and growing housing developments in Ivy Mead and Birch Hill, and the impact that heavy flooding is having on those different sewage systems? So again, I know that you can't answer these questions, but just to put them to those relevant statutory agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Those will be noted, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor John Boyle with one final point.
Yes, thank you for letting me back. And again, Chair, and I won't labour the point either, but can I just thank Karen for her response to the various observations that members have made here. That's frustrating. It is frustrating. And I think we should probably, we definitely want to be putting on the record that this committee are frustrated by the fact that we're not getting the level of information back that would be useful. Because first and foremost, as you know, and every other elected member here knows, our responsibility is to the public, and public bodies also have that same responsibility. And if we are seeking their assistance, their advice, and their information, then the least we can expect is that we get some degree of communication coming back in our direction. So I understand and appreciate officers' frustrations around this. And I'm fairly sure I speak for all members when I say that we would share those frustrations. And again, if that could be communicated to the relevant departments that we're dealing with in relation to these matters, then it might go some way to helping them to understand. But really, it simply isn't good enough if we're not getting the information back that we're requesting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boyle. Your comments are noted there. Members, I see that's all on item number 11, the flooding update. Item number 12 is the Maboy update, and Karen wishes to come in first.
Yeah, Chair, members, obviously you've heard the presentation from PCI consultant earlier, and just to note, members, in terms of the report in front of you today, you will note that we have written to DERA, given that the court cases in relation to the criminal trials, the jury aspect of that has completed. They've commenced their industry consultation and indeed their consideration of remediation options. And we felt, members, that it would be timely to extend an invitation to the department to present to committee in terms of the project. Now, I just, for your information, and it wasn't in time to go into the report today, but we did receive a response back earlier this week from the department to say that they would be happy to actually come in and speak to the committee. They do want to consider their timing, given the sentencing that's referred to in the report today. However, they will make themselves available as soon as is possible in order to provide an update to the members of the committee. So, members, I just wanted to make you aware of that today in terms of the report before you.
First speaker we have is Councillor Jackson. Christopher.
And I see Councillor Boyle has proposed that we do just that, and I'm happy to second it. And I suppose I just wanted to come in and ask a question in relation to the drinking water, because I know it had been raised at full council and it was raised again today by Councillor O'Neill, and I'm not questioning the accuracy of what Councillor O'Neill has said, but it does state within this report that because in relation to what Councillor O'Neill has said is that the contaminants are above safe levels, but in the report in front of us today, it says that there's no pollution incidents in the River Faughan that have been reported by members of the public or identified through the monitoring that's been carried out. So I would just like to query that, and if there is contaminants that are above a safe level, I think that we as a council should be challenging that and asking why it isn't contained in the report that's presented to us. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, maybe if I come in relation to that, and members, you will, as Councillor Jackson's quite rightly pointed out, this was raised at full council last month, a couple of weeks ago. Following on from that, we as officers on behalf of council have written to Northern Ireland Water in order to specifically ask for a response in relation to that point, and we will bring that to members. Members, we also just, and I apologise, it just had come in earlier on this afternoon. We did receive a further update from the department in relation to a few of the questions that members had posed to the department last month. Now, these, as you can see from the report, they've advised that they will come back to us as quickly as possible. We will ensure that that's contained within next month's report to the committee. However, I will also ensure that it's emailed out to all members tomorrow as well, so that you have the response in terms of that. But once we receive correspondence from Northern Ireland Water in relation to the points raised at full committee, members, we will circulate that to members and also ensure that it's attached to the next report to committee as well. Thank you, Chair.
Members, Councillor O'Neill, you wish to come in to clarify as well, or are you content with Karen's response?
Yeah, no, it's just to clarify. So it's not me saying it. It's the presentation from Tetra Tech that's on the department's website. So they're saying that the levels which are travelling through their groundwater, they're in quantities that are above safe levels. But once they reach the Faughan river itself is diluting those contaminants, so that whenever it gets into the river, that then they become diluted, and so as the report says, it's not contaminating the river in a way that's unsafe. But I suppose it's new information in a way that contaminants are actually reaching the river, which we didn't know before. But because of the Faughan diluting it, then they still are, according to the report, at safe levels. But I think it would still be very, very helpful to further explore and discuss this given the Tetra Tech research and presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. And similar to what Councillor Neela said, when I was at the presentation, it was explained to us that the modelling is showing that there is a moderate risk of it migrating to the river farm, but like she says, it's been diluted down. So they don't see it in the modelling, but it's something I think we as a council should make sure that it is robust and that we're making sure we're on top of it, because we know ourselves, because of the criminal case, a lot of rumours and speculation has happened. So we want to make sure that everything's transparent with the information that they're giving out. But Councillor Neal is right. That's what the presentation does state. Thank you.
Members, we have a proposal by Councillor John Boyle, seconded by Councillor Christopher Jackson. John, do you wish to come in and speak, or are you content enough that we take the proposal?
No, I think that's fine. I think Karen outlined it there, Chair. So I mean, I'm fairly sure everybody understood what the proposal is. Is effectively, if we're inviting the department in, we'll propose that we do that.
Thank you. I don't hear anyone speaking against, so we'll declare that passed, members, and that would be item 12 dealt with. Moving on, members, to item 13, Newton Stewart Town Centre Regeneration. Alderman Hussey first, and right.
It's just a quick update. There was a motion, I think it was Councillor Maguire, was it? That the relevant parties would be brought together, including elected representatives. When will that be actioned?
Through you, Chair. Members, your report today outlines that we intend to undertake consultation. I don't know whether members would like a separate consultation with members, because we've going to invite all stakeholders to that consultation document or meeting in January. So members, we're happy to have an additional meeting with members if you feel it would be useful. But what we're intending to do is actually to ensure that that's as widely communicated as is possible and advertised in the local press, etc. So we have as many stakeholders who want to engage in that as possible. So I don't know, members, if you want anything more than that, we're more than happy to consider that. I don't know, Tony, did you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Karen. No, just the report has alluded that obviously elected members, are indeed welcome to come along, but should there be a requirement for a dedicated session, then as I say, as Karen says, more than happy to facilitate that in parallel.
Chair, well, just following on from Councillor Maguire's proposal, there were identified groupings. Should it be the business organisations, community organisations? So rather than just a piece in the paper inviting people, I think there needs to be a proactive targeting of the relevant groups in Newton Stewart to come along to that.
Yeah, through the chair, yes, Alderman Hussey, we have been engaging with the business grouping specifically, and obviously it would be subject obviously to the outcome of today's item. It would be our intention to engage with them, to make them aware that this is happening and to ensure that they're in attendance. And indeed, if there are any other stakeholders with whom you think that we need to be engaging with directly to ensure their attendance, then again, we're quite happy to take that from yourselves either at this meeting tonight or indeed after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, sorry to go over it again, but the motion was business and community representatives. So,
yeah, and so members, if you think that there's anyone in particular that you really want us to ensure that we personally contact, absolutely we will. And we have been engaging with our community services team, our business teams, etc., to try and identify relevant stakeholders. But if members think there's anyone in particular that we don't want to miss, then please let us know and we'll make contact with them.
Thank you. Councillor McHugh, Rory.
Chair, thank you. Just I suppose, as Councillor Hussey said there, following on from Councillor Maguire's proposal at the full council, to welcome this development, whether or not we need a separate meeting, I don't know. Will be guided by, I suppose, whatever actions officers decide to take. But I think in any development, particularly one which pertains to the development of a town centre with this regeneration idea that it's incumbent upon council that we do indeed have these kind of conversations which gives the community and in particular the residents and the businesses within Newton Stewart Town Centre, gives them the opportunity to feed in to what the outcome of it may be. So at whatever stage that this may come to fruition, that they feel part of it, and community ownership is paramount, and when you're talking about developments like this. So just to welcome it, obviously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McHugh. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, thank you. I'm not going to dwell on it, and I've engaged with council officers in the past days and weeks on this issue. Sure, I'm very thankful of the work that's been going on, and I welcome this report and plans for a meeting on the 18th of January. But just to make it clear, Chair, I know that when council were developing plans for Vaughan's Home, that there was extensive engagement, especially with community groups and different interested parties, and I think those are the same groups that will be engaged on this and have that community ownership. I know that the traders are really pushing this. They want to see Newton Stewart better. They want to see some investment in it, and I do welcome that. But I do also welcome and appreciate the fact that we do need community buy-in and community engagement as well as the traders, Chair. But I welcome this report, and I look forward to the meeting on the 18th of January. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, and just concurring with as the members, the DERG members have all stated, that's a much needed project if we can get it to work, and Newton Stewart to support that, the fourth settlement in our city and district. Members, I'm looking for a proposal to go into confidential. Proposed by Councillor Edwards, second by Councillor McHugh here, and we'll just see.